Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. As you can see, Warp Epcot is starting to slowly fill up with people because I told them I was recording this Q&A. This is the series in which you guys just give me any Disney-related questions, whether it's about the movies or the parks or anything else, and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. This week, we're here at Epcot. We're going to go walking around the park in a few minutes, and I have questions from you guys to start answering. So let's just jump right in, why don't we? First question comes from, let's see how many people think to follow me. Nah, just a few. Comes from Jenna Epwright, who asks, "Hey Rob, I have a question for the Q&A. Roy Disney didn't get enough credit compared to Walt Disney. Roy was also another person who made Mickey happen. How do you feel about Roy not getting enough credit?" So I assume you're sort of asking that and making that statement in a more generalized way of saying that Mickey Mouse would not have become the phenomenon that he did without the help of Roy. Roy Disney was very much the business end of the Walt Disney Company. And it's funny because when they started out, I believe they were they were the Disney Brothers Studios. It was something like that. It basically was a name that involved Roy, and then Roy sort of gave up his side of the name, and he said it should be called, Walt Disney Studios, because he understood that Walt was the public face. He was the creative person behind it. It was really Roy just behind the scenes making everything happen. Now, does he get enough credit? I think he gets a lot of credit. Enough is tough to answer, right? Because so many people are involved in anything Walt Disney did that you have to ask if everybody got enough credit. That's just sort of, I think, the nature of a creative endeavor is there's always going to be one leader who sort of directs it. Sort of like a director in a movie. A movie has hundreds of people who work on it when it's a big Hollywood film, and they're all very crucial to making that film happen and making it the film that it ends up being. But at the end of the day, it's sort of the director who gets all of the praise. Now, that said, the trade-off is that it's usually the director who gets all of the blame if it doesn't go right. So that's sort of what you take with that role, and I think that's sort of how Disney worked out. Roy never got the spotlight at the time, but at the same time, he never got the spotlight when a project fell flat either. So, I think after the fact, though, a lot of Disney fans are very appreciative of what Roy did and how Roy was very important to everything Disney did. So, I do think he gets a lot of credit. Our next questions come from, I think it's pronounced Tweet2, who says, "Hey Rob, I'm a huge Brazilian fan of Disney parks and your videos. I want to know your opinion of adding a Disney park in South America, maybe Brazil, after Rio 2016 Olympic Games." Interesting question, right? There are always all these regions where you think a Disney might be able to go. I don't know about South America. Here's the thing. And it's funny that you mentioned you're from Brazil, but the Walt Disney World is a very popular spot for Brazilian tourists. They go up there. So, the idea is if they built one in Brazil, you have to understand from your perspective, yeah, that seems a lot more convenient because now you get to go down there. But from Disney's perspective, that's a lot of people who used to go to Disney World who would stop going to Disney World because they could just go to the version in South America, right? So I think for reasons like that, you're not going to see that happen. In fact, to be honest, I'm surprised they're even building new parks because I feel like in today's world, global transportation has become so much easier than it was in the past that, you don't have to worry about distance. Wherever you are, I shouldn't say that wherever you are, but for the most part, where you are, it's somewhat realistic, opportunity to go to one of the Disney parks. And I think if they found that there was ever an area that wasn't true, then yeah, they would look into developing parks over there. It would certainly be interesting, and it would give them a lot of creativity to add some new things to the parks. As we go around World Showcase here, let's move on to the next question, which comes from Adam Rohde, who asks, "When do you think Disney will take to the world of YouTube? I know they have a few videos, but there could definitely be more. Thanks and have a magical week." This is a very interesting question, and it is one that I don't think I have an answer to. It's one that I sort of am asking myself as well. Like, it's 2014. You guys know more than anybody else that younger people today, rather than going home and turning on their TV sets, they're going home and they're turning into YouTube. It is a great platform. It's a great platform for marketing something like Disney World. They do have a lot of cool behind-the-scenes stuff. I don't think they've ramped it up a whole lot. Would I love to see them ramp it up more? Sure. And when they do, give me a call and I'll send you my resume. But I really don't know. It's really interesting because you see Disney, they just bought Maker Studios, the big YouTube studio. So we might see something come out of that, although I suspect that might not be the case. It's really hard to tell why they bought Maker and what they're going to do with it. A lot of people think they'll get into like the Let's Play business or, just the YouTube video business. But, from a strictly business perspective, they could just be getting into the advertising money. They could say, look, here's a small business that makes money. Let's buy it. And that's more money in our pockets. So I don't know. It's tough. I think when we might see the most change up is when Bob Iger leaves. I feel like YouTube has gotten so big over the past few years that if Disney was going to really jump in the deep end of that pool, Iger would have done it long ago. And so maybe it's whoever takes over his reins. It's their responsibility to jump into that. And hopefully we see them do more YouTube because I would love to see more Disney-related YouTube stuff. Our next question comes from Big Bad Bugaboom 5. That's a really interesting username. Who asks, hey Rob, we all know that you love Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. This is true, I do. But are there any restaurants that you tend to avoid? Now, I thought this was an interesting question because it's one that almost sounds negative in its context, and I don't like to be really negative with Disney. I feel like I could usually find something I like out of everything there, and if there's something I don't like, I usually just don't mention it. That said, from a perspective, yeah, there are places that I avoid. I'm a big fan of the parks and the rides, and so for me, I can enjoy a quick meal a lot more at Disney than I think a slower meal. So for that reason, I think some of the more fancier restaurants are the ones that I tend to avoid, and not because it's bad food or bad theming, but usually because it's a longer experience and that's time I would rather put into the parks. Now that said, there are exceptions. I mean, one of my favorite memories from my last trip in 2012 was I was with 5 of my friends, and it was just a friend trip. It wasn't a family trip. And I remember the night we had dinner in Mexico, and that was a long dinner, and it was before Illuminations. We spent the whole evening in World Showcase, like we are here now. We didn't do any rides, really. It was just for dinner and the fireworks, and that was a really nice, relaxing time. But I feel like that was like sort of the standout exception. Most of the time, I'm just looking for a quick meal that tastes good, that'll refuel me, that's got some nice theming, and send me back out into the parks with some renewed energy. So for that reason, yeah, I guess those are the places. Also, things like Le Cellier, I'm probably going to avoid Be Our Guest for a while. Anything that's like really exclusive and hard to get reservations for, I'll probably avoid just because I'm all about convenience when it comes to a vacation. And so if it's something I'm going to have to like bend over backwards to make happen, I'll probably just put it off because there will be a day where maybe I don't have to book months and months in advance for a dinner at Be Our Guest. So we'll see. Our next question comes from Two-Headed Jedi. That is interesting. Has there ever been a Two-Headed Jedi in any of the Star Wars projects? I wonder. Let's go walk into Morocco. I'm going to throw them for a loop and turn around and see if they follow me. They are. As you know, Disney World prices are super high. Do you know any ways to make a Disney World experience less expensive? Thanks. This is a great question, and one that I think a lot of people are asking all the time. Now, it's weird because I'm about to plug a book that's not my book, but I listen to WDW Radio a lot, and Lou Mongello, the author of multiple Disney books and the podcast, just came out with a book called 102 Ways to Save Money, I think at Walt Disney World, is something titled something like that. And he's usually a trustworthy source, so if you want some really in-depth info on how you could save money, I would look there. That said, there are a lot of great tips you can use. For one, if it's possible, like if you're not traveling with kids who are dependent on school time, you should go in the off season. Usually prices are a little cheaper there for hotels, things like that. A lot of times you can find deals. I think for the past couple of years, Disney has made a habit of running free dining experience promotions in off-season times, which means when you book a certain amount of dates at certain resorts, you actually get a free dining plan. So that's, food can be expensive at Disney. Having that is a big difference. When I went in 2010, I think, I was actually with a friend and we did the free dining plan, and there was a lot of free food, and it made a big difference in how much it costs. And then there are lots of little things, And these are just saving tips that sort of help with any sort of long-term saving project, not necessarily Disney. But I think a lot of people tend to forget how small quantities can add up quickly. You know, if it's something as simple as starting by putting change in, you know, a change jar, or, you know, pocket change. Like, I did something where, okay, for a while, this was a thing where I did where it was essentially the same as putting change in a change jar, but it was with dollar bills. So if I broke a 20 and I'd be left with like $2 or $3, that would go into a savings. And that can add up really quickly, and it can help you save a lot. Just making sure you have a really strict budget. On top of the food thing, there are other little tricks you can do. For instance, there are a few grocery stores that will actually deliver groceries to hotels on Disney property. Most commonly, this is used for the campground resorts, because there are people who are staying in their RVs, or they're staying long term and they can't be eating out at Disney all the time. But you could totally, you know, run off property real quick, buy some food. I remember when I was younger, when we had the fridges in the hotels, we would get like cold cuts and stuff, and we wouldn't always eat like grocery food, but, you know, maybe that'd be a short meal one day. And it's just, that's the sort of thing where as a family you could save a lot of money by doing things like that. You know, bring around a water bottle with a filter and fill up at water fountains instead of buying water. You know, maybe even a habit switch. You know, there were times where I would go to Disney where I was a big soda drinker, but for health reasons I would stick to water to stay hydrated, and it also helps save money because you're not buying drinks all the time. So little things like that really help out a lot. There's no like big one secret trick to sort of save a whole bunch of money. I guess it also helps if you know somebody who works at Disney, because they always do like family and friends discounts, so you can get some pretty sweet discounts that way as well. Stu Hamilton asks, "Hey Rob, I was wondering about if it is safe to go to Walt Disney World at Halloween. I personally get scared very easily, and I have heard Universal is pretty scary. Thanks, and make the most of your week." Great question. No, it's not unsafe. It's not scary. Disney is actually really great for Halloween for younger people or people who get scared very easily, as opposed to something like Universal. I have been to Universal on Halloween. I've been to Disney on Halloween. They are night and day different. It is such a different experience. Universal, although this was many years ago, so they could have changed, they were really all about making you scared. There would be people with like fake chainsaws who would chase you around. They were all about really putting some fear into you. Disney, on the other hand, it's about having fun with it. I mean, to the extent that their party is called the Mickey's, though it's the parade, the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween parade. So they're not about making it really scary. Now, if you go on the Haunted Mansion on a Halloween night, I can't say that you wouldn't get scared, but that would partially be to the fact that it's the Haunted Mansion, right? But in general, I think you're totally fine to go to Disney on Halloween. And finally this week, our last question comes from Sean England, who asks, "What is your view on Tokyo Disney Resort? The Tokyo Disneyland Park ranked number 2 for park attendance last year, preceding Disneyland Park in California, and is said to have an even higher attendance than the Magic Kingdom, ranked number 1 last year, for this year. The resort is also one of Walt Disney Company's most profitable resorts. However, it isn't even owned by the company itself. What are your thoughts on this as well?" So, I don't know a whole lot about Tokyo Disney Resort. Never been there. I haven't looked a whole lot into it. If I were to ever go out there, I would totally want to go check it out. So I can't really speak to what I think of the resort as a standalone resort. That said, I think it totally makes sense that it's climbing those charts. The population in Asia is insanely large, and there are a lot of people. And like I just mentioned earlier in the episode, when you have a more regional park that you could go to, you know, people are going to go to it. And so it makes sense that people are going to go there. And I think that's great because it's good news for Disney. Even if they're not full owners, it's still good news for them. And that I think they're the kind of company, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just assuming that this is how it is based on how they sort of give love to all the parks, is that when one thing does well, everything gets to do well. You know, it's sort of that rising tide lifts all boats mentality. So I'm all for that and happy with that. And for all we know, there could be things over there performing wildly successful that they may want to bring over to the States. So that would be really cool too. As for them not owning it, that's not surprising. You know, it's interesting because when Disney first got into the Disney resort business, you know, with Disneyland, not with Disneyland, sorry, but with Disney World, they were all about hiring out. You know, originally they weren't going to be doing their own hotels. They were going to have other companies managing it. They were going to have other companies do things like the food management. They were all about sort of divvying out these responsibilities and delegating them to other companies. Eventually they realized, like, well, okay, the best hotel company that we're hiring still doesn't do it the Disney way, so we're going to take over. Does that mean maybe one day Disney will pony up the cash to buy out the remaining interest in, you know, Tokyo Disney? It's certainly possible. Although I think in today's sort of atmosphere and business atmosphere, I don't think they need to. I think whoever, I forget the name of the company that's sort of in on it with them, but I think they realize that doing things the Disney way is the most profitable way for them in the long run. So I think we'll see them sort of continue to have that sort of partnership. Anyway, I want to thank everybody this week. If you have a question you want me to answer, all you have to do is ask in the comments below. I try to get to as many as possible. There are bound to be repeats or ones that don't lead to as much discussion, but I try to get to the ones that I can as much as I can. Uh-oh, it sounds like I'm starting to starve. I must eat a burger. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic week. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Rob Plays. I'm also Rob Plays That Game on Instagram and Facebook. And I hope to see you all next time for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. Hey, I got the name right for once. Bye, everybody.